All right. Welcome back to the Unnamed Production Company third video. And this time we thought maybe we would go ahead and live stream it for everyone. So we're going to try this out. This is kind of one of the things that is I would say one of the missions of our little project here is to try to create a little bit more visually appealing live streams. And so it's kind of an idea or an example of what you might be able to do and what we're going to hopefully be able to bring to the table for you guys, for the community, so that if you are live streaming your games and you want to level them up, so to speak, hopefully we'll be able to help you out. But this video is not about that. This video is RPG a day. We are going to be answering questions 7, 8, and 9, so we'll be caught up through today. And we have, you've noticed different faces, I think, over the past to other videos. We've got officially 6 founding members of the Unnamed Production Company right now. Jordan and Nate could not be here today, so the rest of us will hold down the fort. If you haven't already, make sure you take a look in the playlist. We've got video 1, which is questions 1, 2, and 3. And then video 2 is 4, 5, and 6. And today we should do 7, 8, and 9. And then at some point we'll probably do 10, 11, and 12, which should finish out week 2. So the theme of week 2 is the question how. And question 6 was how can players make a world seem real, which we discussed last time. And that was a really good discussion, I think. But today we're going to start with question 7, which is how can a GM make the stakes important in an RPG? This question I thought was really interesting, and I'm really excited to hear your guys' response to this. What I would say too is anybody who happens to be watching, go ahead and say hi in the comments if you want. Go ahead and answer the question yourself in the comments if you feel like it. And if you do any kind of video blog, even maybe a public Facebook post, wherever we can find your answers, let us know because we want to interact with you. So that being said, let's jump into it. Who would like to go first and answer how can the GM make the stakes important? Caleb, all right.
All right. Now, I know there's probably going to be lots of good answers to this, but one technique I have used, and usually at the time I use it, the players say they hate it, but after the game, they usually come back and say it worked wonderful, is usually it's in the middle of combat or action, like initiative. I literally give them like 5 seconds if they can, because most people in initiative are like, okay, this turn I'm going to, I mean, that's standard, but if you give them 5 seconds, okay, you're up next. They're like, oh my God, I missed my turn. Do like a countdown or a quick take. That I think makes very cinematic, and it definitely like people get the oh my God, holy crap like thing going. And there's probably other answers too, but I think that technique works very well for making like holy crap, like it just got real. Like just do a quick 5 second, okay, you're next. And if they didn't do anything, it's like, oh, you forgot your action.
Yeah,
so that's a technique. That's a technique I've used a lot. And like I said, at the time, people usually hate it, but then afterwards they're like, oh wow, that worked so well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that's really good, both for obviously making the stakes that much more intense, but also kind of speeding the game along in some cases. So yeah, I think that's great. It's a great answer for sure. Cool. All right. Let's see. Sam, do you want to go next? Perfect.
Cool. You saved me the effort of raising my hand.
You're welcome.
Thank you. I kind of interpret it a little bit differently than something in the immediate. To increase the stakes, at least in the long term, the way I see it is you have to invest in the player's interests, or more importantly, probably the character's interests. And you just with NPCs that they're going to enjoy, or places that are really, interesting to them, things that capture their attention. you know, when they're just going around town, things that they're going to enjoy going back to after they go on their trips or something like that. And then, you know, the tried and true method of you take it away from them or you threaten it, you know, and then that'll immediately get them to do anything basically to get that stuff back, you know. Like if anyone watches Critical Role, whole ending of the first campaign, Mercer started messing with their favorite NPCs and they were going nuts, you know. So I personally enjoy that.
Yeah, and of course there was the whole thing with Sam and Liam's character, and Sam was trying to save his wish
Yes.
spell or something till the end, and then yeah,
Counter
so
spell, yeah.
yeah, the counter spell, yeah. So
Made him
no,
use
that's
it.
great. Yeah, I agree. I think
Spoilers,
that's
Critical Role.
well. If you haven't seen the end of season 1 by now, I don't know. I don't even watch it, but I saw that because it was great.
You should know
But
by now.
yeah, you should. So, but let me ask you this, because I think you're right. But maybe the sort of a tie-in question is, how do you make sure that the players kind of get that investment or give you that investment? Because it's easy, you know, for a GM to say, hey, you know, let me know about your background or let me know about this village or whatever. And I think good role players, if the GM now all of a sudden says, oh, and you hear that the army is moving on this town and that's your town, most of you are going to be like, whoa. But sometimes they're not, right? And so do you do anything, or have you had any situations where you've kind of had to entice players to be like, all right, give me something so that I can work this in?
Yeah, no, and you're right. It's definitely easier if you have a group of players who like to yes and you,
Yeah.
because then they're just gonna go over everything. But the method I use at least is the shotgun method.
Yep.
I just keep throwing stuff out there, and eventually they're gonna pick something, or there's no game really, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the best method for everybody, just because me, I like to come up with stuff on the fly,
Yep.
and then just insert my adventure from that lead in, regardless, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. I agree.
So just throw out all the NPC ideas you have. Eventually, one of them will be interesting to them.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. No, I think that makes a lot of sense. Cool. Well, Rory, what about you? How do you think the GM can make the stakes important?
I mean, I think Sam is pretty much right when he says, you know, you gotta take things away from people and give them back. I think that's true. Like, you need to show them what the game is like without this super cool thing, and then let them experience the joy of getting that thing back and having those things happen again. But then also kind of hinting that, hey, this can happen again. You know what I mean? Other things can be taken away from you. I think that's kind of true. But I would also say, though, that the key to that is really just know your player. Some people can be unusually enticed by like emotional moments in the game if they're willing to. And like, my favorite thing to do with that is, like, you know your player. If they're all about the items, you still don't have to just take the item away. You can have an item like disappear or fall out of their hand, and then have an NPC give it back to them. You'd be surprised at how much a player likes an NPC after they've returned an item to them. It's weird. It's like they're all of a sudden they're blood brothers forever. Now kill that NPC and watch what happens. You know what I mean? And you know that some players will let you do that, and when you can, it's nice, because if you have 4 people in your party and one of them lets you do that, then it's a little break from the take an item away, give an item back sort of repertoire. But yeah, all in all, I would say the main thing is let them experience a thing, take it away, and then let them experience it again.
Yeah, I think that's a good answer. You know, it's interesting because I think that sort of the common theme, or the maybe I don't know if I want to say the easiest thing, but something that I think a lot of GMs do is exactly that, right? You put something out there, or you make something important that the characters have said, hey, this is important to me, and then you threaten it, right? And that's something that works, I think, in a lot of fiction. But one of the things that I found that can be kind of interesting is not necessarily to take something away or to threaten, but to dangle something in front of the characters that they want, and then say, go get it. And then what you can do is you can involve stakes, right? And I think stakes are ultimately what we're all talking about, right? That there's a cost for not going after this thing, right? The stakes are something is going to happen.
A cost for being dumb. You know what I mean? Like a cost for not doing what you would have done in real life. Like when a monster attacks you and it's huge and you're a little person, you should run from that. If you don't, bad things can happen.
True, although that's hard because in some systems they actually incentivize you not to do that, right? And in some cases the system itself can actually make it so that engaging in that would actually be the thing to do. But you're right, like you want those stakes, and so it's like one of the things that I always like to do, and it usually doesn't work, but if we're ever playing in a game and somebody comes up against undead, one of the things that I like to do as a GM is ask the character, so is this your first time encountering undead? Like, if it is, like, how do you react to that? Because sometimes that gives the player the cue to be like, oh, wow, yeah, this is actually something either that I haven't seen before, and then you can react accordingly. Or if you have seen it before and you're like, I'm not scared, it kind of gives you a moment to be like, why, right? And so that emotional investment in the game, I think for me is one of the way that the GM can sort of raise the stakes, that they can say, okay, we're not just going to make it so that your character has a better chance to die, or that we're going to take away that thing that you love, but what we're going to do, kind of like what Rory was saying, we're going to inject this emotional moment into the game. And then it's your responsibility as the player to portray that moment through through your character. And that to me is the way to do it. But this question is hard for me also because I think that for stakes, it's also so important for the other players to do it too. You know what I mean? Because it's like one of the common examples is if, let's say we're playing and Rory says something to Caleb in character and Caleb doesn't respond because maybe I as the GM just start moving the scene along. Like that's an emotional investment. There's stakes involved there that the player might be like the character might be trying to get this emotional connection. And so, having the players interact. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, that still falls back to knowing your play. Like if you know this is your only role player, then don't lean on the other players to help you role play that, create NPCs that you can kind of interact with that player with, if the other players aren't going to give that to you. And if they're going to give you a bunch, well, then know when to move along, because at some point that emotional moment can become 3 emotional sessions that need to stop. You know what I mean? So, you could get both extremes.
Yeah, for sure.
Cool. Speaking about like NPCs, like in the past questions, memorable NPCs, that's also a way to raise stakes, is get the PCs, make them bond with a certain NPC, build them up, and then kill them off, like create that emotional bond too. Yeah. That's a tactic I've used.
I've tried to do that in my Star Wars campaign. I put a kid in there, and they were like, whatever, like this kid is not. We're not going to help this kid.
That's the trick. See, if you try to give them an NPC to like, they will hate that NPC.
No, it's the NPCs you never plan to stick around are the ones they always end up liking.
Yeah, just like my answer for that. My answer for that question that you referred to was Jimmy. Never planned that guy. I thought he was gonna die for a session. Just like, oh, this is trash character.
Yeah,
stuck around forever. Sorry if I cut you off.
No, you were actually talking. I was just gonna say that in our defense for that little girl there, you had spent weeks telling us this is Edge of the Empire. Everybody's grimy. Everybody's terrible. You got to be terrible, the Edge of the Empire. Then all of a sudden he throws this little kid. He's like, "Would you like to give this little girl charity? Maybe she needs help." We're like, you just warned us for like 2-3 weeks not to help anybody."
I know, but I almost got Chris to do it. I almost got her to do it.
Well, if one of us was gonna break, it would be Chris. But
but anyway, but it was fun because one of the things it did was, even if they didn't want to help her, and that was actually fine. I thought it was funny that they didn't, but it created a, something that was a complication later on. So yeah, like those NPCs that all of a sudden are now like, either they were kind of a minor thing and now they're like a big deal. It's sort of like the sort of superhero vigilante things where, it's the minor mob boss or whatever, and then, he's kind of like working with the vigilante, and then all of a sudden, like, 6 episodes later, now he's like a big deal, and you're like, oh no. Nice. Cool. Well, what do you guys think? Should we jump on to question 8?
Yeah.
All right. Fantastic. So question 8 is, how can we get more people playing RPGs? I think this is a really good one, and I'm going to let you guys answer first. So who would like to answer that one first? I suspect we're all going to have the same answer, but we might not.
Sure. No, Samuel can go this time.
I don't know if you guys, it was probably all going to be the same answer. Honestly, for me, it's just like, it's 2018. Be fearless. If talk about your hobbies casually, just like everybody else does. Then people who don't know will naturally ask you, what's that? Or it's like, I think I heard about that. And then, don't go crazy. That's the second most important part, is don't be the guy that expects you to be. Be calm and, kind of explain it in normal terms and not excited geek babble that we sometimes do.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I do this thing on the weekend, Dungeons and Dragons. It's you wouldn't be interested. And then they're like, well, what do you mean? Like, maybe I
I get together with like 4 buddies, we hang out, we drink, we have fun. When you wanna come over one day,
Mm-hmm.
It's almost the same as watching a sports game, except we're rolling dice and
yeah, you're imagining the sports game.
Mm-hmm.
I usually tempt them with beer.
Yeah,
beer is a good one. I tempt my friends with liquor. So yeah.
Be like, you remember how it's like? Did you ever watch? I don't even. What was the show with the kids and they go to the Upside Down and what the heck is the name? I'm blanking.
Stranger Things.
Stranger Things. Yeah, it's like, you ever see Stranger Things? Remember that game they were playing in the beginning? Well, it's like that, but we're not 12-year-old nerdy kids. We're 30-year-old nerdy kids.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, let's do that. So yeah, no, that's true though. I think you're right. You just got to really talk about it, and of course now it's more popular than ever. I mean, I know we joke about it. I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard a lot of people say now that Dungeons and Dragons is cool for the first time ever.
It kind of has. It's kind of broken the old stigma. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're seeing now with the success of things like Critical Role, obviously, and with Stranger Things, and then even I think it was a couple nights ago, Stephen Colbert had Joe Manganiello on, talking
saw
about
that
D&D.
today. That's
yeah,
huge.
yeah, and you had people like Vin Diesel and whatever. So I think it's becoming a big part of pop culture now, and with more and more people being interested in things like Star Wars and Game of Thrones and the fantasy sci-fi genre, I think people are starting to realize, there's stuff out there. So
yeah. Also, that's another really good example. Like, this is Game of Thrones. We hang out and we play an episode of Game of Thrones. You like Game of Thrones, right?
Yeah. But like, you don't have to sleep with your family and you don't have to kill them. But that's something
less incest.
Yeah.
Pretty much any show or movie out there, there's either already an RPG out there or very easy to convert something.
It's called
that was
fate.
a tactic. That's a tactic I used to use too. It's like, hey, well, what's your favorite movie? No, let's hang out. I'll show you. I'll make something for you. And it's just base it on the movie.
It's like, you like crazy 70s Hong Kong kung fu movies? I got you.
Yeah,
I do.
Yeah. I know, me
so
too.
someone says, Reservoir Dogs, and you're like, shit. But
Yep.
Savage Worlds can do it.
Yeah.
it's just talking.
Yeah, it's like Kill Bill. No problem.
Kill Bill's easy.
Yeah.
Kill Bill's easy.
Yeah.
Reservoir Dogs is hard. It's all dialogue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're, I think you were saying.
Reservoir dogs, you go LARPing. That's how you do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you said that you don't have to sleep with or kill your family, and less incest. I think that is true, but probably more blood. Role playing games probably have more blood than Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
At least every session I've ever been in. You cut off his arm, and it bleeds everywhere.
D&D players are savage and graphic.
Yes.
Yep.
Murder hobos.
You can tell every first-time player.
NPCs.
Every first-time player, they're either like, "Oh, I can steal things. Let me just steal everything," or, "Oh, I can express my brutality.
Right.
I can express all that rage I have from my retail job.
Yeah.
All right, hold on a second."
It's like, is it possible for me to like rip his head off while he's still, but like, yeah, let's just go with it. Clearly you want this.
We're kind of joking as if we want them to be like less brutal in the games, but like, let's be real. If I ever had like a first time player who was nice to all the guards, eventually one of the guards would just suspect them for something and grab them and force them to like, you have to shed blood. This is D&D.
Like,
the guards just telling, "Kill me."
You guys have been sitting in this tavern now for 3 hours and you haven't fought or killed anybody? Nope.
Or paid for anything.
Yeah.
like Deadpool pops in and be like, "You're doing it wrong."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yep. Oh my gosh. That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh man. No, I mean, I think really that's probably the big thing, right? Is just talking about the games. And I think like sharing your excitement and showing people how excited you are about these things, and it can be hard because it's sort of like, depending
Everyone's
on your personality.
different, yeah.
Right. It's like, oh, so hey, you got anything planned this weekend? And it's like, some people will be like, oh yeah, I'm going out hiking, or I'm going out and doing this sporty thing, or, I'm going to this event. And it's like, well, yeah, I'm going to go hang out with my friends and roll some dice and pretend to be an elf, for, for 4 hours. But, if you're comfortable doing that, I think, it's cool to be like, yeah, I'm just getting together with some friends. We're probably going to play like, D&D or something, or Dungeons and Dragons. I think now you might be surprised at how many people will be like, oh, cool. Or, oh, what's that like?
But also, me and you were talking earlier, the internet, like airing your games and showing people your games. I know we were all probably thinking like, that's what this channel is going to be doing. We're going to show people our games. But I think to piggyback that off of what Caleb said, everybody's different. So another thing everybody can try to be cognizant of, and I think this is the thing that's a little bit harder for a community, like then you get the group thing, like, as you go up from the individual to the small group to the large group, you get more and more of the same stuff as you group them closer together. But I think we should all be cognizant to, like, if you have a weird idea, do it, because the thing is, whatever's popular in the group right now is only popular in the group right now.
Yeah.
But anybody else coming from the outside is not affected by that paradigm. So when they come in, if they see all whatever is popular that week, cyberpunk,
right,
cybernetic stuff, and they are just not into that at all, then they're going to pass by and not jump in, because they're not going to realize that the next week everybody's into high fantasy again.
Yeah.
And, if they just hung around, they'd see that. So I think we should all just, don't do the same thing over and over again. You'd probably be happier anyway. Just mix it up and air it all. Put it all on YouTube and let people watch, because they might be like, oh, this looks like fun. I could eat pretzels and do that.
Well, and I mean, when you see how many viewers Critical Role pulls just on Twitch, right?
Oh, it's like 20,000 alone on Twitch.
Yeah, and then they get like 100,000 plus views on the YouTube channel over the next day or two. It's like, it's amazing. And so, like they were saying, and esports is becoming that way too. I mean, it is now an entertainment form that in some cases can pull in more views than some, television shows. I mean, not some of the big ones, but considering that this is a niche industry, and considering that, like, there's only so many people that are going to actively watch role-playing games, that's a huge amount of people, and Critical Role certainly is the biggest one. But when you consider how much RPG content there is online,
and Critical Role kind of opened the door for a lot of that, though. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for
Broke down a
sure.
lot of the barriers for that.
Yeah.
Just when you consider regular game streamers and the number of,
Right.
of viewed hours is pretty, it's pretty amazing
It
that that's
is.
the case, because obviously the quality is not high. We're all talking,
Yeah.
we're all sitting at home. Really, no matter where you are in that range,
Yeah.
it's not high quality TV,
Right.
but it's getting a lot of views.
Yeah.
So the content is piquing interest. That's good.
Yeah. A lot of people's favorite pastime now is literally just doing something around the house and playing either like a video, like listening to someone play a video game or listening to someone play an RPG.
Yeah.
Right. So putting those YouTube videos always get those listens now.
Yeah. You get that podcast, and when the drudgery of your hour-and-a-half commute into work, or in Rory's case, going down the stairs or whatever it might be, right? But it's like, that can be a thing, and so I think that's important though. Really, just exposing people to that and being like, hey, this is out there. You might find it cool or you might not. And I think trying to stay positive about it too, which is like the goal of RPG A Day 2018. Participating in this,
Yeah, my big thing to this is, I'm going to quote Will Wheaton, is don't be a dick.
Yeah.
One of the biggest, like we said before, just be open. Say you have 4 players at the table. One likes fantasy, one likes sci-fi, one likes horror, one likes westerns. Well, mix it up. Play a little bit of each.
Yeah, for sure. Cool. All right. Well, let's jump on to question 9 then, because I think this is a really good one, and I'm excited for this one. So question 9 is, how has a game surprised you? So it's kind of a big question in a way, and maybe I'll start with this one. I think that I haven't had just one game surprise me, but I think the biggest surprise that I've had when it came to RPGs was finding systems that supported the style of play that I favored or that I wanted to do, right? So, it was funny because my first experience with gaming was the White Wolf system. It was Vampire the Masquerade, it was Werewolf the Apocalypse, and those games, despite maybe how they were written or whatever, we played them very narratively. I mean, they're called the storyteller system, and while there's a lot of crunch involved and whatever, the theme throughout those games was, your goal here is really not to get bogged down in mechanics. It's not to get bogged down in a bunch of rules. It's to portray a fictional world as realistically as you can, but with these supernatural elements. And so my first glimpse of RPGs was that, right? And then, as happens with a lot of people, we then jumped into D&D. And at the time, I was playing 3rd edition, so I didn't have any experience of AD&D or anything before that. But
no THAC0.
Right, yeah, no THAC0, thank God. And so, but it was weird because like 3rd edition was very different in the way that it read and the way that most people were playing it. And so for me, I was having a big struggle with that, trying to figure out how I could get those very story-driven games that I was used to in that engine. And it wasn't that you couldn't do it, but it was that a lot of the players who I was playing with who had only experienced D&D didn't have that same frame of reference. And so it could be a struggle. And so when I came back into the hobby later and I discovered games like Fate and like, the Powered by the Apocalypse games, and the narrative dice system, which is now my favorite, and even 5th edition D&D to an extent, although I think we found more of a community that was playing a more narrative heavy game. Whether or not the rules specifically sort of encourage that is beyond the point, but that's how people were playing it. And so it was cool, and so, man, when I found Fate, I was like, whoa, like you can do this style of game and like you just basically use words, you use sentences, right, to do this stuff. It was cool. So, that was really surprising to me, that there was a whole system of a whole set of games and a whole sort of culture around these games that were specifically for a more narrative style. And that word can be weird and loaded, but I'm using it, so whatever. If you want to debate or you want to talk about what you think narrative is, do that in the comments, because I actually would love to hear that, because I think a lot of those terms can be weird. But yeah, so for me, you know, and I'll plug NDS one more time. Genesis, Edge of the Empire, that narrative dice system has been probably the most surprising for me, because it initially seemed really scary and really hard and really weird. And then I played it and it was great. And it was able to, I think, blend that sort of crunchy kind of systemized way of playing that more traditional RPGs did with the more narrative style that games like Powered by the Apocalypse and Fate tried to emulate, right? And it was a great balance. And so when I found that and I figured it out and it clicked with me, I was like, wow. So that was mine. Yeah. So
I'll say, I just want to, oh, sorry, go ahead, Sam.
I was just going to say, I'm going to follow up with, I'm almost the same answer as Sam. It's usually finding, what I like to do is like pieces of new systems. And I'm like, oh my God, like they did that part so well. I love this system, but this system had this one element I loved so much. And I love taking them, put them together and like go with it. Does it work? No. If it did, it's like, oh wow, I have like a hybrid new system. But that's the whole thing, is finding the systems or elements that work with your play style. Like I grew up, like D&D was my first game, the second edition era. I'm showing my age. But I played mainly growing up was the White Wolf games and the D6 Star Wars. So I grew up more with the narrative style, and then I came back to D&D with third edition, which went right back in the crunch. But then when I found Savage Worlds back in like 2011, that was like, oh my God, like this system like has so many awesome elements to it. So it's just like I like finding elements of certain systems and taking a core system, plugging things in, or doing that. But that's kind of like a surprise. It's like I just find a new element of something. Like the initiative system from the Genesis, I've used that in almost all the games I run now. I love the initiative system on that.
me too.
See, and it's not exactly my favorite, but I don't dislike it. I would say I think I come from a different game background entirely from both of you guys. I mean, I got in late, and yeah, I started with 5th edition, but I mean, I very quickly started trying out other systems like within the first 6 months of playing tabletop games. So I think I kind of like, before I got really attached to anything, I'm still not really attached to any one system. Kind of got a chance to play them all and kind of make my opinions up. So I would say if I was going to answer the question like whatever surprised me, I would actually say it would be Cryfoth, the Cryfoth supplement that Dice on Ice did. Yeah, Dice on Ice. Yeah. Because I started with 5e and I basically thought, oh, you know, I don't know, this is like, it's like doing the rules for the game at the same time as trying to play the game. And it's kind of hard to stay in character, even though I know in the back of my head that that's what we're supposed to be doing. So I kind of formed an opinion of that. And then, you know, I thought Genesis is pretty good. It probably hits that crunch narrative thing right on the head. For me, Fate is a little light. Savage Worlds is really nice because I find it to be pretty flexible. It maybe isn't as perfect as Genesis sometimes, but it's like the little book that I can have in my back pocket, and I could run a game like just about anywhere with that. And I think I could get people going pretty quick. So, you know, I definitely love that system. Kind of had all these opinions. Then I played Cryfoth, and I have to say it kind of changed my opinion on 5th edition and kind of, I think, taught me a little something about RPGs in general. And if I ever wanted to make one myself, I think I would use it as a basis. And it's that sometimes mechanics stop you from doing narrative things, and sometimes mechanics help you do narrative things. That's what that expansion supplement, whatever it actually is technically considered, that's what that taught me, because being exhausted and tired and thirsty and having my abilities modified as a result, just wanting to find water so bad, which is not something I've ever cared about in even the narrative-based systems, like this one actually made me care about it. And yeah, so that was the surprise moment for me, and it taught me a little something.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. It's funny that you mentioned that. Basic Fantasy actually did that for me because it's very simple, but it's so customizable. And I think that's kind of what you were getting at, is that D&D sort of has this sort of thing where it's like, okay, you know, it's great the way it is, and people have certain expectations about it, but it's also so easy to take it and kind of use it to tell all kinds of different stories, which is neat. By the way, if you guys are interested in Cryfoth, keep an eye out on the channel. Hopefully in the next few days here, Rory actually did an interview with Megan and Connor, the creators of Cryfoth. So we're going to get that up on the channel. And then at some point in the not too distant future, there will be a Cryfoth game on the channel as well, so you guys will get to see that. You can also go get it on DriveThruRPG right now. I don't know if it's still $1. It was for a little while, but either way, it's still a really good price.
Yeah, it's a good price,
and it's a really cool supplement. So check that out for sure.
Yeah, in that game, I'm DMing, and Megan and Connor are going to play in it with 2 of the people within our group, so that'll be fun. Play with the creators, so whenever you think you can get away with breaking the rule, they'll be like, nah.
Yep, that should be good.
I volunteer.
I volunteer as tribute. Awesome. Well, Sam, what about you? You want to kind of end it for us here with what's surprising for you, or what game has surprised you the most, or as broad as you want to make it?
Yeah. Well, I am surprised by how much it sucks to go last, since everyone else kind of says all the things I'm thinking about.
I know.
No. But truly, yeah, a lot of the things were said. Like I'm a little bit surprised by every system I've ever looked at. Like Caleb said, like I look at every system and I love reading through the rules. I'm kind of a rules junkie. I dig seeing new and innovative tweaks to systems, and I like to steal them quite often. So that's something that I'm generally surprised with. And what really surprised me was when 5th edition first came out, or at least, yeah, when it first officially came out, I got to look at the rule book and seeing how they really listened to the playtesters, and they stole and tweaked different parts from other RPG systems and put them in play, you know, with things like inspiration points and the ideals and the flaws and things like that. And of course, most of that's optional. But it shows that that might be, I think Pathfinder's doing a very similar thing now with their 2nd edition. So I'm surprised by that nice turn in the 2 giants of the game, of the hobby, are kind of going in that direction of like, let's gather up some of the best aspects and like make a, you know, what we think is a super system. And obviously it doesn't appeal to everybody, but I think that mindset is surprising, and I hope it continues.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we are in gaming mecca right now in 2018, and we have been for a little while. But yeah, there's literally an RPG out there for everything. So if you're into something, chances are you can find a game.
It's a lot easier to publish your own game too nowadays.
Oh my God, yeah.
Are you into 1847 France? There's a game for that.
Yep.
But Sam, about being surprised by every system, I realized as you were saying that you're 100% right. Like when I read Savage Worlds the first time, I was like, "What do you mean there's no HP? That's what are you talking about? There's no HP."
That was Vampire the Masquerade for me. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh shit, I could just go straight. It's like in Fate. If you just take away the stress boxes, you could just go straight consequences.
Yeah.
I'm like, you know.
And like when we played Genesis for the first time, Sam, and you were like, "Okay, now so you guys have this initiative. Anyone can go." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but who goes?"
Yeah.
It's like, "Well, any of you." Okay, but that's cool. But which one? Well, it's up to you guys. What are you talking about?
We'll decide. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. You're like, what?
One of us goes.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. Yeah. No, that is really cool. I think you're right. I mean, I think, you know, there you'll find surprises in really any system that you take a look at, even if you kind of go into it thinking, I know what this is about, like, you know, this is gonna be just another whatever, right? Like I think of this sometimes. This happens to me with when I'm looking at some of like the old school Renaissance games that are coming out. But what I've noticed is that each one of them is sometimes just a little bit different and sometimes really turns stuff on its head. But uses this core. And so you're like, wow, okay, this is different. This is cool. This is unique. So yeah, so that's awesome. Well, thank you guys for participating yet again. This has been, you know, the questions 7, 8, and 9 of RPG a Day 2018. Make sure anybody who's watching that if you guys are participating, like I said, please let us know. We would love to, if you have a video, if you have a blog, whatever you're doing, if we're friends with you on Facebook and you publish it on Facebook, let us know. You know, we want to interact with you. Kind of the goal of RPG a Day and obviously of this channel is to kind of grow and support the community and to discover new people, you know, and see if we can interact, whether that's in a game or just, you know, as part of the RPG collective community. So giving you permission, go ahead and link your video in the comments. We'll watch it. We want to hear from you. Stay tuned. We'll probably try to pick up the next 3 questions here in a few days. That should finish out week 2. And then we'll jump into week 3 a little bit later on.
Which week 3 is describe. Could be interesting.
And keep in mind, if you like what you see, hit the like button, hit subscribe, hit the little bell.
Yep.
And come check us out when we cover the next 3 questions.
Absolutely. All right, guys. That's been the UnNamed Production Company RPG a Day, our 3rd video. You guys have fun.
Yep.
And
Keep playing.
happy gaming.